Joining us today on the Phil Hay Show, then, Hayden Evans back for a second bite of the cherry. Welcome. It's lovely to have you along. Agent and Super Leeds fan.
Absolutely, yeah. Great to be back.
So let's get into the stuff that you're looking after at the minute then. Names like, we know, Jamie Shackleton, obviously, but Charlie Creswell's emerged this year, all with your agency. So what's it been like for Creswell?
Yeah, I think it's exciting times for him, exciting times for the agency, really, because over the years, it's always that much better and more exciting when we've got some Leeds United players. So clearly we're not parochial as an agency, but it just makes it that much more interesting and exciting, especially when they're youngsters like Charlie, who's clearly got a very exciting future. Looking forward to seeing how he goes.
We did a long piece a little while back, and again, you helped us with this about agencies poaching minors, so players under the age of 16, which is against the rules in England. But seems there was obviously the Panorama documentary about Eddie Ward, Raheem Sterling's old agent, and it was portrayed as a pretty big problem. What's your reading of it, and how much of an issue is it? And what's your approach when you have parents who say, look, I have a kid who's 13, 14, 15 that I would like you to take on, which must happen from time to time?
Yeah, I think, I think the programme itself, was it Panorama?
It was Panorama.
Panorama.
Yeah.
So in it being Panorama, it's supposed to have a great deal of credibility for responsible journalism and all that. And I think it was a joke. They'd got the right subject, but the way they dealt with the guy in the hoodie and shaded streets and stepping out of the car and you're not having the camera with him when he had this conversation with somebody who was giving him the inside and then back in the car going, wow, conversation I just have. I mean, it's bollocks, isn't it? I mean, either be on camera and say what you've got to say, or it just makes it shady when it actually is shady and it should be exposed as such. So anyway, that being aside, it is rife, absolutely rife. It's a big problem, and one of the ways that some of the guys are going around it is using social media, so friending, 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds. It's all but grooming, in a different way. How it stopped, I've no idea. But from our point of view, if we're approached by a parent or something like that, we'll say, look, we can keep a dialogue going with you, no problem. Keep in touch. Let us know how your boy's doing. The year in which he becomes 16, so you don't have to be 16 years of age. So if he's 16 in the September, in the January of that calendar year, we can start talking to you properly. And that was any legalities are with the guardian, whether that be father or mother or whatever. And I would say the majority of the longer-standing agencies that are in control of their own associates, which is an important thing to mention, we're all the same. You sort of play by those rules because they're set out that way. If you're in constant dialogue and you seem to be a decent agency, you'll get that kid ultimately. You will, The ones that go astray are the ones that go astray for one of two or three reasons. One, cash. If an agent is offering, mum on her own, single parent, in a bedsit somewhere, a lump of cash for her son aged 13 or 14 to sign, which you can't do anyway, but they tell them they can. I can actually understand that. I can understand socially why she's going to have to take that cash. It's all wrong, but it happens. The second thing is things like just simple things like boots. They'll, for all the wrong reasons, they'll say, look, I've got you a deal with Adidas. Here's a pair of boots that you can get 3 lots a year. No deal with Adidas exists. They're just buying them from Sports Direct, and saying they've got my deal with Adidas. So it's completely immoral, completely immoral. It doesn't serve any purpose long term.
I was just going to say, I can't really see the value.
No.
There can't be that many kids. If you take that many gambles on kids at that age, there aren't that many that you're actually going to make money out of.
I think it smacks of desperation to me. The agencies that are going around and doing it. Yeah.
It sounds like a bit of a minefield. It makes me wonder, all of your players will be on Instagram and Twitter and so on. So how much of a problem is it, the idea of them getting solicited, boot deals, whatever else, financial inducements that you don't know about and is happening behind your back?
It's a big problem if your young player is jumping ahead of himself, you know, they all love that social media thing. At some point, they all want that blue tick, which is hard to get for them, all that nonsense. But I think with us, certainly, we just say, listen, any approaches from anybody about anything, you know, you must relay them to us, or you must refer them to us. And that's generally where it stops. They'll just say, oh, speak to so-and-so, Andy, Richard, Hayden, there's the number, and that call never happens. And that it usually works. It just nips it in the bud.
A final word then in this section about Erling Haaland, if we could. Your encounter with him, big Leeds fan that he is. When's he signing?
Oh, I wish.
Well, but you see, people think this is apocryphal, don't they? People think that, or some people think that the idea that Leeds were going to sign Haaland potentially is fanciful or never happened. But you were obviously fairly in the thick of that, and it sounded like it was pretty serious and potentially a goer for a while.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a Bill Fotherby bringing Maradona situation. What actually happened? Alfie, obviously, I knew from my time and his time, and it was a time where, you know, I was heavily involved with the whole squad, so I'd always been in touch with Alfie. Andy actually had as well, Andy Gray, and it was I can't remember how long ago. My memory's awful.
He was at Mulder, though, wasn't he?
That's right. He was at well, would he have been 17 then? About
round about
17,
that,
18. Yeah. Anyway, he was ripping it up, but also fervently following Leeds United, and literally, you know, wanting him this and that about Leeds, all the rest of it. And we spoke to Victor and said, look, you know, I can bring Erling to Leeds, and the rest will be over to you. But you know, lots of agents talk about mandate. We'll get a mandate. We'll give you the mandate. We'll show you. We'll prove that the best proof you can ever have is to physically bring a player into the club. So we said, look, we can do that. He said, absolutely. You know, he's of his age. He's the number one in the world that anybody would want. If you can bring him to Leeds, you know, we'll do the rest. So, and Victor's alluded to this before, so I'm not saying anything that I shouldn't be saying. So we brought Alfie and Erling over to stay at Alton Hall, which had been like a second home for Alfie when he first came to Leeds. He felt comfortable at Alton Hall and all the rest of it. We got them in. We were talking about Leeds United and everything else. And Victor, we took him to meet Victor. Victor did the usual. He had the Leeds United shirt already made up with Haaland on the back, you know, all the rest of it. And what was impressive about them at the time was he said, look, let's go to the training ground. That, you know, that's what the boy wants to see. You know, it's Elland Road. We know it. He loves it as a Leeds United fan, but as a footballer, we want to talk football. And they were in the middle of a first team session, and Christiansen at the time stopped the session and came over to Erling, you know, hugged him, talked about football, all the rest of it. That went really well, and Christensen was impressive, frankly, and it was Erling, you know, let these guys sort everything out, and you know, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Fingers all of this, you know,
yeah.
And it, you know, it went quite well. We went back. The bottom line was, I think, the figures. I think they wanted around £4 million, frankly. But quite rightly, in a way, you know, Leeds weren't in that stable position we're in now, and he was not going to play. Even the talent he was not going to play first team football at that age. So it was seen as just a step too far at that time for a player who would only play under 23s. Honestly, and you know, so the irony was we were back at Alton Hall. You know, it was all okay. Alfie opened up and said, look, I'll be honest with you, next week we're going to Juventus, who want him. Victor being Victor thought there's a way around this. He would contact Juventus because he knew the guys there, do some sort of deal with him where he would be loaned back to Leeds, developed at Leeds United. We'd have had an option on him and all that, but it never quite worked. He then went to, I think it was Christmas time, we played QPR away, and it was around his birthday or Christmas. Anyway, he wanted, as his present, to to be with the Leeds United fans in the stand behind the goal, and that actually happened. So yeah, a lot of truth about everything that went on, and unfortunately, then money talked. Minola came in, made the family a massive offer because he had a whole track of future transfers and clubs ready for everybody to earn fortunes with, and the rest is history.
And Salzburg, ultimately, I think the offer was way above what Leeds would have paid.
Way above. And ironically, a guarantee at that age of first team football.
Maybe one day.
Be nice, wouldn't it?